Hi there, Serial Trader here. Just going to do a little update on Bitcoin, but before I get started, I'll just let everyone know that I'm preparing to go to Hawaii for vacation in the next day or so here. So there won't be any more video updates for the rest of this week and definitely partway into the next week as well. So sorry about that, but I am definitely looking forward to this vacation. Now let's get down to business here. So since the last video, Bitcoin had its bottom formed by the looks of it, and on Bitfinex that low was 7,040. Okay. Now my entry averaged is in the 7,400s. I believe it's around 7,437 to be more accurate. So at this point, I know I had my stop below 6,000 last time, just in case we had one of these spikes down, but that didn't even happen. We had a pretty non-eventful bottoming process actually, or I should say a fairly low volatility bottoming process, at least so far. So now I believe it's a good idea to move the stop up to 7,000, which is still just below the lows. So I've done that. My stop's now at 7,000. So now taking a pretty small risk to stay in this trade, and I do want to stay in it because it looks like we have. You see, I have this little line diagram chart up here just to show you. Looks like we're in the middle of a leading diagonal. It's either still forming or it's already formed and now we're having a little requisite pullback. But the structure, and I hesitate to label it short term at this point because it could just subdivide a few more times, which would change the short term labels, but not the overall structure. But yeah, just the way we've been moving up in such overlapping, choppy fashion, that definitely has all the makings of a diagonal. It's not an impulse wave, but trends can still start with a diagonal, and in this case, a leading diagonal. It doesn't have to be an impulse wave, although I definitely prefer impulse waves because they're a lot clearer as they're forming and once they're formed too. But okay, so diagonals can be leading or ending. In this case, since we're going in the opposite direction to what had been the preceding trend, which was down on this time frame, it would be the leading variety, and in this case, the beginning of a new trend to the upside. So that means that if and when it completes here and has its requisite decline, and you could have a leading diagonal wave 1 up and then a wave 2 down, and then start a wave 3 impulse wave or something, right? We still have to hold these lows, which on this chart is 70.40, and that's why the rationale for the stop being 7,000. If this really is a bottom and we're starting a new trend, 7,000 should go untouched. And certainly as I go on vacation and I'm not really going to be looking at things too closely, I want to know that it'll get me out of harm's way if things start turning for another leg down, right? And then I can always reassess when I get back. No big deal. But if it keeps me in the trade, which ends up being a good trade, and we start trending up nicely, I'll be quite pleased with that too. So at this point, it's a good position to be in. A much tighter risk than initially. Okay, and well, I'll just get rid of this line diagram here. I just wanted to show you the resemblance between this and just the idealized leading diagonal. Okay, so on the 4-hour MACD, and not that this has too much weight, but the actual MACD lines are above the 0 line for the first time in quite a while, which means that now on the 4-hour time frame, the trend is actually technically up according to MACD. And okay, so that's definitely a positive. And if we go to the, I'll just get out the 4-hour here. Go to the candlestick chart on the daily, okay, and let me just go into the daily here. If you look at the daily, we're actually getting a MACD bull crossover. So that's where the 12-period moving average crosses above the 26. And you can see in the past, and remember MACD is a lagging indicator, so price really has to prove itself a bit before you get these MACD crosses, which we have done. But in the past, you see these MACD crosses, pretty good follow through. Over here, another good cross, significant move afterwards, right? And the same goes for the bear crosses. When we have the cross down, usually on this daily especially, that's pretty negative for a good leg down. And I'll mention this T line, so the 8-period EMA. We're now getting above the T line, which is obviously the first step in the right direction. And now with this little pullback today, so far we're actually still holding above that T line on weakness, short-term weakness, which is a modest positive as well. So obviously still very early if we are starting a new trend, but I definitely like to be early to trends if possible. And now that the risk has been tightened up to that 7,000 level, this is actually quite a decent trade to stay in at this point. And I know it feels like you're watching paint dry, at least you know how Bitcoin can move or has moved before, but sometimes these low volatility, well, really always lower volatility precedes higher volatility. So if that holds true this time as well, we can start getting some acceleration here, hopefully to the upside. And in this case, volatility to the upside, which is what we're looking for. But, you know, if it comes down and there's just another leg down, gets stopped out, we'll just have to look for signs of a bottom once again and look for another entry. But we'll only deal with that situation should it arise. So I'll just get back to that 4-hour chart as it's my preferred chart for most of what I'm looking at here. And I don't know if there's too much else to say at this point. I suppose whenever this leading diagonal forms, we'll look for some sort of corrective three-wave decline that doesn't make a new high. And that's definitely the hope here in this case. But if not, we'll just have to look for another trade should it present itself. But I'll check in with you guys sometime less than 2 weeks from now. All right. Have a great week trading, guys. Serial Trader signing off.